Hello everybody, this is Destro Tech. Welcome to my deck tech. I'm going to be introducing a deck design that I've been coming up with. I'm sorry if my voice is strange. I do have a cold right now, so I apologize for that. But let's dive into this and talk about my deck. Hello everybody. Today I'm going to talk about my Electrostatic Pummeler deck, which is a deck I've been working on since Kaladesh released. The Pummeler is really a powerhouse because it can get 20 damage on turn 4 if you get the right cards. So I've been playing with this deck and testing out different cards since the release of Kaladesh, and I want to talk about some other ways you can run this deck and make it work. With Aether Revolt, there's a lot of new cards that you can use in this deck that make this deck really strong. It's really good in Standard. I think it could have potential in Modern, depends on what cards you add to the deck. Alright, so let's get into the deck. First, we'll talk about the creatures, and we'll go by tier, and then we'll talk about the spells and the lands, and then the sideboard. And then I'll talk about upgrade opportunities. First, here's the Longtusk Cub and the Servant of the Conduit. The Longtusk Cub is extremely useful because it can get down turn 2 and then start swinging and get energy. And this thing itself, if you put energy into it, it can actually turn into a ferocity. It can get like 8-9 damage. This thing can be huge, and it's really good against burn decks if they don't burn it early. The Servant of the Conduit is kind of it just gives you energy, but it also mana accelerates you. This is fantastic because on turn 4, you could have 5 mana if you get one of these out. That's all you need. It's just one of these and then you have 5. And that's going to be key in this deck because I run some high casting cost cards in this deck, and I'll get to those. Here you have the Electrostatic Pummeler. This is the key feature of the deck. This card is going to be the one that tries to win you the game. It can double its power each time that you spend 3 energy. So that's going to be the key feature you're looking for in this deck. You want to spend all your energy on this guy and try to KO your opponent. But you're going to be getting energy from several sources, so let's talk about how you get more energy. Here, these are some energy producers. This Bristling Hydra is able to give itself hexproof, but you would try not to do it. I mean, you want to get the energy, but if they try to remove this, then you can hexproof itself and defend itself. Also, if you have a bunch of energy laying around, you can keep pumping into this thing and make it big. That could be a game winner. Many games are won with just a Hydra. I use Altered Ego because it can copy any creature on the battlefield. It can copy one of the next card I'm going to get to later. It can copy the Pummeler and make the Pummeler bigger because when you Alter Ego it gets +1/+1 counters. So if you put, let's say, 3 +1/+1 counters on your Pummeler, when you copy it, then you have a 4/4 Pummeler. And that doubles up to 8/8 and then 16/16. It's just going to get nasty. So, and then your opponent cannot counter this. Also, you can copy your opponent's creatures. I use this for copying Kalidas or something like that. Any kind of powerhouse that they have, I just copy and make it bigger, and they can't even counter this. And I think control is going to be a big thing in Aether Revolt. So this card is I think that nobody really uses it, but personally, I love it. It's been fantastic for me. Here's a new card from Aether Revolt. It's called the Peema Aether-Seer. This thing, you get energy for each, the power that you have among the creatures you control, the highest power. So this can drop and give you a whole bunch of energy. This is the key feature of this deck since it's energy based. And if you can get your Pummeler up, and let's say that you dump all of his energy and make him into like a 9/9, this thing will give you 9 energy. Then you can reinvest that energy into the Pummeler again, and then just swing in for massive damage. So this thing's amazing. Also, it can make creatures that you want to kill block, so that's also an option, but you don't necessarily want to do that all the time. On tier 5, you have some Verdurous Gearhulks and a Multiform Wonder. The Gearhulks are just amazing in this deck because if you put those +1/+1 counters on the Electrostatic Pummeler, that can already make the Pummeler a 5/5, which again doubles. So that can make it really nasty really quick. In addition, you get a 4/4 trample, so that doesn't hurt either. The Wonder, I threw just 1 in here, but I used to play with like 3 or 4, but I just threw 1 in to kind of surprise my opponent. When you get something like this deck doesn't have any lifelink or any way of gaining life. So when you put this in here, that can really like throw a wrench into your opponent's plans because this thing can get huge, it can block really well, and it can do good damage in the air, it can fly, it gets vigilance, lifelink. So this thing, if you have a lot of energy, this thing could be a force. It's just insane. Your opponent has to remove this, and since it has 5 casting costs, it's going to be hard for your opponent to do so. Alright, so that's it for the creatures. Let's get to the spells. For the spells, we have the Blossoming Defense, which is great, hexproof, +2/+2. This is really a great card in this deck because you need defensive spells, and this will defend your Electrostatic Pummeler or anything else, and it makes it bigger. Pummeler getting bigger is always better, so again, great card. All around great defense. Next, there's the new card from Aether Revolt, these new cards. Invigorated Rampage, which is now a surprise version of the old one, Larger Than Life, which is +4/+4 and trample, but was sorcery. This is an instant, and so you can give your pummeler +4/+0, and you don't care about the toughness. It doesn't matter if the pummeler dies, unless they have first strike, then you have to worry. But if the pummeler dies, who cares? If you hit with +4/+0 and trample, that's what you're looking for with your pummeler. Also, the Highspire Infusion is a key card that people were talking about in Aether Revolt that is really good in the pummeler deck. It gives you energy, +3/+3, does not give trample, but it's an instant. So this card, you can run any number of either of these cards. These both are going to be where you're getting most of your power from, with surprise power anyway. The opponent can't see coming. The Gearhulk they can see coming, but these ones no. Next, you have the Monstrous Onslaught, which I threw one in my deck. This card, if you can pump up your pummeler to make it huge, or you have a Verdurous Gearhulk out and it's huge, or anything that's big, you play this card. And even if your opponent responds, it doesn't matter, because this thing says when you cast it, it counts the power of a creature when you cast this. So your opponent can go ahead and can go ahead and kill your creature or anything like that. It does not matter, because this already looked at the creature before the creature dies. So it doesn't even matter if they kill the creature. They can kill it, it does nothing. And then you can wipe their board, swing in with the pummeler or whatever else you got, and you can win the game. Lastly, I have 3 Saheeli Rais. This card has seen a lot of interest these days because people want to play the combo. I'm not playing the combo, I'm just doing the Electrostatic Pummeler, and I want to stick with that idea. So this thing just basically copies any creature and makes a token of it. And that's what you want to do in this deck, because our creatures all produce energy. And if you do it on a Verdurous Gearhulk, it can put out extra +1/+1 counters. That's just amazing. Or you can even copy your Altered Ego and then get another copy of whatever your opponent's using or whatever you're using. So overall, these are the cards that I've been playing with, and I've been having a lot of fun with these cards. Let's talk about the lands next. Okay, so here's my land base. I'm running 25 lands in this deck. The deck has a total of 26 creatures and 9 spells. That gives us room for 25 lands. This gives us a pretty good land base because we reach up to high casting costs of about 4 and 5 as the average in our deck. Because we're trying to go for, if we can't kill our opponent by turn 4 with our pummeler, we want to make sure we have an end game, because I don't want to just run out of energy, literally, and then just die. So this deck has a very good end game. It can do good early, it can do good mid game. That's what it's aiming for, is mid game. But then end game can put up its own. It can fight. So let's look at these lands. We're running 6 forests, 2 islands, 4 of this Botanical Sanctum, which is just fantastic. It comes into play untapped, which is great for this deck, because you want to get turn 2 drops easily. Turn 2, turn 3. You don't want to be tapped out. These ones do. This one does come into play tapped. This is a Lumbering Falls. It can turn into a creature. It could be a good finisher in the late game if you need something that has hexproof. It creates a 3/3 hexproof. So I don't like the fact that it comes into play tapped. It's one of the few lands that do. I don't care for that, but you know, keeping one for late game, it can win you some games. So I just keep it. Aether Hub gives an energy. No reason not to play it. We're an energy deck. We got 3 colors. Run it all day. Game Trail and Cinder Glade. We don't have a lot of red cards in the deck, but I do run a few, mainly Saheeli Rai. She has to have some way of being cast, and the Aether Hub is not enough. So I run the Game Trail and the Cinder Glade. I don't know if you would need this many red sources. I mean, that's 12 red sources right there. But I run it just to be safe, because if you get her turn 3, you want to be able to copy something, because you can copy the energy producers or even the Tiger that swings in for more energy. So if you don't have a pummeler turn 3, you can drop Saheeli Rai, copy the Servant or the Cub, and get more energy for when you do get any of your energy cards. Because a lot of your energy cards, the more energy the better, right? That's how the deck works. So I recommend running as many blue and red sources as you can, but make sure you keep green the strongest. In this deck, I gotta have green, because just the majority of the deck is green. So yeah, that's the land base. Okay, so for sideboard, I'm running 4 Ceremonious Rejection, which may not be useful anymore because the Smuggler's Copter is now banned. and Emrakul is now banned. So this card is not nearly as strong, but I think there's going to be a lot of vehicles, and especially a lot of artifacts with all the new artifact stuff introduced with Tezzeret and everything. So Ceremonious Rejection, or it could be Negate. I think it's up to you if you want to run either one. Personally, I just keep the Rejection for now, but I might switch to Negates later. Harness Lightning, just all around amazing. Again, it was more towards Smuggler's Copter, but I think it's still good. I think it can burn anything, and if you kill something that's weak, you can keep the extra energy. So yeah, play that all day. Just a great card still. Appetite for the Unnatural. There's going to be a lot of artifacts, and there's going to be some nasty enchantments too. So this thing sticking in this deck, it's a great sideboard. You gain 2 life. I usually use it to kill Gearhulks, because when you destroy like this big 6 casting cost Gearhulk and you gain 2 life, that's going to set your opponent back a pretty penny. Here's a Confiscation Coup. We're already in an energy deck, so energy, this gives us 4 energy, but we're going to have a lot of energy in this deck. So you can pretty much gain control of any artifact or any creature. There's even been a game where I gained control of the Colossus, which costs 11 mana. So if you have a lot of energy, you can gain control of anything. The key feature of this card, and why I think it's overlooked, people don't notice that, maybe it's because it gains control of an artifact or creature, and artifacts are going to be huge, and they already were huge, but they're going to be even more huge. That you can gain control of anything, including the Marvel that puts out Ulamog's and whatnot. So yeah, this thing is going to be really, really good in the sideboard. I've really liked whipping it out on my opponent, and they don't expect it. So great card. I love it. So here's some cards that I think could be used in the deck as well. I need to playtest more, but these are just some ideas that I have. The new card from Aether Revolt is the Implement of Ferocity. It's a 1-drop, and you can pay green and sack it, get a +1/+1 counter on a creature. This is fantastic to put on your Pummeler. Also, this draws a card, so I think this has potential. It's a great 1-drop, and the deck doesn't have any 1-drops as of now, so this is a good one. You have the good old Puzzle Knot, just because it gains you life, gains you 3 energy. So turn 2, if you didn't have a cub or something like that, you could potentially play this. You gain life, you gain energy. Then turn 3 Pummeler. Turn 4, you could spend 3 and sack it, get another 3 energy. So that's a lot of energy for your Pummeler. That's if your opponent doesn't have creatures to block with. Again, you're going to need Trample. So this card, that's why I don't play with this card main deck right now, because I really need that Trample turn 4. So yeah. Then you got the Larger Than Life. This is what people have been using up until now. And the problem with it is it's sorcery, so your opponent sees it coming and they can just remove your creature as a response, and you invested too much in your creature. I like to surprise my opponent, at least know that they're not blocking before I do this. So I like instant speed better. Then you got Unsubstantiate. This does not really fit the deck 100%, but you could, they basically return a spell to their hand that could stop you from winning the game with your Pummeler. Or this could even bounce a creature back to your hand that produces energy. So you could bounce the Conduit guy back to your hand and get 2 more energy by playing it again if you need to. This card is very versatile in this deck, actually. So I think that returning stuff to your hand and getting more energy later is fantastic. Here is your Illusionist Stratagem. This is from Aether Revolt. It's a little bit expensive. It's 4 mana. It's not as good as the other Displace, which costs 3 and does the exact same thing. But this draws you a card. When you exile 2 creatures, this can be fantastic because most of our creatures produce energy when they come into battlefield. So if you just do this, it blinks in and out, or out and in rather, and then you get a whole bunch of energy. There's been times where I've gotten like 6 energy out of this thing. It's just nasty. And that's a lot of energy for the Pummeler. So yeah, this is a good card. Draws a card, so replaces itself. All around, I like this one. This is a new one. Siege Modification. This could be really good in the Pummeler. It gives a first strike, +3/+0, and Pummeler bases his plus on his power, not his toughness. And if you have first strike, the Pummeler is going to survive. But this does not give Trample, which is why I don't main deck this right now. But I'm going to play test it. This could be good with the Pummeler. Now let's look at the creatures. We have some creatures here that we could use for some early game energy. There's the Sage, which is alright. Just doesn't have any abilities. Just the 2/1 that gets 3 energy. Could be useful. 3 energy is how much the Pummeler needs for his power, so 3 could be good. Personally, I don't use it because I like having other abilities. This is a new one, and the Chaser has a first strike and gives you 2 energy, so it's not quite as good. It doesn't give as much energy, but that first strike could be crucial. So if you want more of a defensive creature that you could block early game, or you want to attack in and make your opponent have to make tough decisions, this card can do it. It's pretty good. The Voltaic Brawler gives you 2 energy when it enters the battlefield, and it can pump itself. This could be a force on its own. It can win games if the opponent doesn't have way to respond early game. So this is always a potential option. Here's a Cat Monkey. This card, although it doesn't look that good, it's very unassuming. Actually, this is extremely good when you use this with the Pummeler, because turn 2 this comes down, turn 3 Pummeler comes out, turn 4 you move those 2+1/+1 counters on your Pummeler. Your Pummeler's now a 3/3. It can double itself up to a 6/6 with just his own energy, so that's pretty insane, I think. Anything that gives your Pummeler pluses that are permanent makes it so that if he doesn't swing in and kill immediately, he has higher potential to stick around and swing in for the next combat, right? So that's a good card. I like the Monkey. I'm going to playtest it some more. Here we have the Architect of the Untamed. It's kind of a slower card. I personally don't care for it that much, but I have seen people online use it against me. And when they're creating 2 or 3 6/6s with all the energy they produce, and our deck produces a lot of energy, so that could be a good late game card. For only 3 mana, so it's got potential. Here's the Voyager, which nobody really plays with. It could be good. I mean, we can get a lot of energy out of this thing, but overall, it's too slow, and it's just a 2/3. If you can make it bigger, then absolutely this thing could be nasty. But I don't know, it doesn't do a lot by itself, but could be good depending on your playstyle. It's got flying at least, and trample by default. This is the new dude. This is the Refiner. The Rogue Refiner gives you 2 energy and draws a card, so this could be a turn 3 play. Obviously you want the Pummeler instead, but I mean he gives energy, so not a bad option. This is a quite good card. Finally, here's some high casting cost end game cards that could potentially go in your deck. I wouldn't run too many of these because we're trying to keep our curve lower. Right now it's more towards around 4, but these can make it much higher, but these are some end game cards. So Torrential Gearhulk, we don't have counter spells or anything, but we can pull surprise pump spells out of our graveyard. And when the opponent thinks they're blocking a 1/1 Pummeler and you only have 3 energy or something, you could pull out a +4/+0 trample and just slam it on your Pummeler, and then double it and it does 10 trample. You can win the game. So Torrential Gearhulk, even good in this deck. Doesn't have to be just counter spells. We have some pretty nasty instant pump spells we can use this with. The Aether Ancient, again, is kind of a delayed game kind of thing. It just resets your opponent's board, which personally I think that the other green spell that does X damage to all their creatures equal to the highest power you have is better than this. But yeah, I don't know, a 6/6 flyer is pretty intimidating. It gives energy, so I was using this. This is part of the Blue Whale deck that people were playing a while ago, and it's a fun card to play with, but it's not as aggro as I'm looking for in this deck. I want this deck to try to kill the opponent by turn 7. So anyway, not a bad card. Here's the Elder Deep Fiend, and here's a Korean Elder Deep Fiend. I just think it looks cool. It's darker because it's been misprinted, but besides that, yeah, Elder Deep Fiend is a good game finisher. Again, you want your opponent to not have blockers when your Pummeler swings. This can tap all your opponent's creatures. You sacrifice anything else. Keep your Pummeler up, but sacrifice any of your other creatures, and this thing becomes really cheap. Like you sacrifice a Servant of Conduit or the Cub. This thing is 5 mana, and it slams down, and you tap 4 of your opponent's creatures, or even their lands before they can stop the Pummeler, and then you can just swing in with the Pummeler and just have no defenses and just hit them for whatever damage you need to do to kill them. So personally, I was main decking this. I took it out temporarily, but I always had about 1 or 2 in my deck. This could definitely see play in this deck. I would definitely recommend testing this one in this deck. Anyway, that's it. Well, that's about it for this deck tech. Thank you for watching, and I hope you guys can experiment with this deck and enjoy it like I have. I think that the Pummeler is definitely a great deck. I think that it's a little bit gimmicky because it requires all the energy, and you have to have the Pummeler, and that's just one creature that can do what it does. It's the only one that can do what it does. But there's so many endgame finishers in this deck that I think that this deck overall is quite powerful. I think it's got a really great endgame if you don't manage to pummel the opponent with the Pummeler. So I think that you guys should playtest this and see what you think about it. You can tweak it here and there, throw in and out cards. Like the cards I suggested I think are the best for this deck, but maybe you have some other ideas that are good for this deck. Anyway, yeah, experiment with it. Leave some comments down below. Let me know what you think about it. If you like the video, like it. And if you guys want more notifications from me about the videos, I would like to make more of these videos. So hit the notification bell on the right. And I'm going to try to produce more deck techs of just deck ideas that I have that I've been playtesting. Alright, thanks for watching. Have a great day.